In the name of love. Loving is an art most difficult to learn, yet the hurt tells us that learn it we must, whatever the cost in labor, uncertainty, and time. The true seeker for love picks up any tool at hand. He accepts help from anyone who will give it. And as he finds strength, he commits himself to a lifetime of striving. A fair number of people use the camera as one of their tools in the search for loving. Such a person is Edgar Gelabert, but he wouldn't even think of saying, "I use my camera in the name of love." This would deeply embarrass him. Nonetheless, that is what he uses for. I've known Ed and his photography for several years. I admire them enough to think they have something to teach us. Ed is often puzzled by his own photographs. Often he has said, "Well, Ralph, I've confused myself again. Do you think you could help me discover where I am? There seems to be a lesson here. Let yourself be puzzled. Try to admit yourself that you don't always know." Then, "Ralph, sometimes I think I'm nuts. Everyone is supposed to have fun with photography, but a lot of time I seem to use it to make myself miserable. Why? What is this all about?" Simply, your camera can stretch you and make you grow if you'll let it. However, no wise man has ever called self-stretching painless. My picture of Carmen, his wife, sometimes they strike me as very peculiar. They certainly don't look like her. Well, what is a woman? Is she only what she looks like on the outside? Or is she a lot of else too? Perhaps Ed is only seeing what is really there. Carmen is a very handsome woman, but Ed sometimes made her very homely. I asked her about this. "Carmen, this picture shows you as ugly, a peasant. What do you think of it?" "But I am a peasant. I like it." A man ought to see his wife as ugly and beautiful too. He should see her as tender and tough, loving and hating, silly and wise, knowing and unknowing. This is what is so admirable about Robert Frank's photographs of his wife. He has let himself see her in all her aspects. Furthermore, he has let himself understand that he really sees her in all these ways, even if he hasn't always found his own motives admirable. Harry Callahan has done a lot of this kind of seeing too. It is part of the thorn-strewn path one treads on the road to loving. It isn't loving yet, but is on the way. Back to Edgar Gelabert. "Ralph, don't you think it's strange that I have fine equipment, then let it sit on the shelf for months at a time? What have we here?" Is it so strange? True, some photographers turn out many pictures per week. They are the ones we usually hear about. However, a lot of others don't. Perhaps it comes to this. You can't use a camera to open up your seeing or to narrow it down. If you let it open you up, you're going to see some things about yourself you don't like. Galabot is a strong man. He looks as sweet as a boy, but only the strongest can look into himself 7 days a week. Ed took a picture of his mother and father, which stalled him for 6 months. When you understand what he saw, you would know why. Ed brought the picture to me at Columbia University. He said, "Ralph, this one really shook me up when I printed it. But when I shot it, I was only aware of being angry at my mother. Dad was behind her. I asked him to put his hand on her shoulder. We mulled over the picture for half an hour or so. That I gave this interpretation. Sometimes things that are very bad pass between a mother and a son. You were not so much angry at her for what she was thinking as at yourself for secretly liking whatever it was. As so often happens, your mother shut out your father during all this. You sought to break up the pattern by making her aware of her husband. Ed knew very well what I meant. He accepted it as possibly true and thanked me graciously. You see now why I've called him strong. But what has all this got to do with loving? Well, if you really want to love people, you've got to learn to see and accept what they really are. A man who says he loves peanuts, but he has never seen one, is a fool. Loving is knowing. It's not easy to learn. However, there are lighter moments too. It isn't always emotional turmoil. Like the picture of Ed's brother William and his baby daughter. That's just plain sweetness and light. A simple message of hope and joy to all people. If it weren't for the light, we wouldn't have the strength to face the dark. Let us see now if we can turn all this into a project for you. There is a technique involved in Galabot's style of family in photography, though it will be difficult to explain. It might be called listening with the heart. You listen for something. When you hear it, you take pictures. When you hear it no longer, you stop. Long before all this happens, however, you must clear away all the frustrating things. When the heart whispers, you don't want to get yourself all tangled up in stops and depth of field calculations. Figure out all the hard-boiled technical stuff in advance when you are feeling aggressive and critical.